Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Rez Infinite. So I exited it out of the game to basically just reset myself in Area 4 to Level 1, whereas I think I was at Area 1, Level 1 anyways. I've taken a little bit of a break. Kinda needed it. Frankly, this is a game that you both could benefit from having a break because it'll let your fingers rest, but you also could very much suffer from having a break in that your fingers won't be warmed up to the muscle movements that are kind of needed. So far so good though. In a couple of episodes we've already done Area 1, 2, and 3. It really is just a case of is Area 4 or Area 5 going to turn into being something way more difficult. So immediately that felt kind of slow. There is some weirdness I think you would have to recognize there. I may have straight up missed the cube here. Like, yep, my fingers definitely don't feel warmed up here. And I kind of question if there really is a need. Maybe there's achievements, but those achievements are too hard to try to shoot down 100% of enemies. Certainly if you know where these guys are, if you've just played the level multiple times to memorize it. This is not working. I was trying to do larger shots, but we've got some very powerful tanks here now. Yeah. Small levels certainly just open the door to this, being overwhelmed by a lot of small enemies, potentially being taken out by a huge enemy. See, maybe there's more of a trick to just target all of that and not worry about the smaller enemies. At any point there, an overdrive would have been very helpful. Of course, being leveled up more, maybe I would be able to take on the level a little bit better too. And at some level, I assume the move probably is to play the same levels over and over again. These guys are getting considerably more difficult though. Like, undeniably, there's just more bullets getting fired at you at once. You are in a interesting position here in that if you aren't a huge fan of the thumping bass style of music, like if you're a fan of classical piano music, violins, things like that, you don't have that style here in this game. It's all just unique songs and instrumental pieces for this specific game. Whereas if this game wasn't so old, I would really expect a higher level of ambition. Like, and yes, they have added the X area, but I still would kind of want to see closer to 8 to 12 areas, which would be kind of what you would expect to see on a soundtrack, CD-ROM. 8 to 12 tracks of music, and different songs, potentially going in even different genres. Where each level is very different. If you want to get really pedantic, you could complain about the fact that some of these textures are actually textured, and that this isn't something you could advertise or say was a 100% vector-based visuals, which, I mean, I don't know why you'd want to get that pedantic. This is a game that might look amazingly well if you were to remake it using LEDs, like super bright individual pixel LED matrix display screen. But on the other hand, that might actually make it look horrible, because a pixely look with a vectorized image would kind of ruin it. This area always felt a little weird to me, because you start to almost run, and this just feels like this is a completely different section of games, where this could easily have been a different level. And it's not the fact actually that you're about to run, it's the fact that you've got these floating blocks as your boss, and it's about to run. It's a UFO, but it's trying to get away from you, it's trying to attack you. Weirdly though, because you don't actually control any of this, you're not really gonna crash into anything. So you're just trying to destroy the boxes. And there's a great example of not turning around fast enough. He's using these cubes, which again, this whole area is more textured. He's using the cubes as shields, so really you just want to target the UFO as much as possible. You get a little guitar in that as we start to do damage, and now the cubes are forming the form of a humanoid running. Like I said, he's about to run, where you still fly. So it's almost like this defensive firewall, which I assume the bosses should be confirmed as the firewalls, and everything else, the minions, should be called viruses. But it does just kind of have this feeling that it is trying to emulate humans, which we assume humans are the creators of these firewalls and these programs. Or at least we are maybe the creators of the creators. Now, there's an interesting case where I just got knocked down by very possibly not destroying enough of these now disc-shaped cubes. Let's go ahead and just overdrive and see if that helps really. Even with the overdrive, I think there's kind of a maximum number of targets that you can shoot and take on. It looked like there might even have been a secret path there that I missed, because I'm seeing these wall sections. So there's Uranus being destroyed. Analyzation 100%. Shutdown 92.20%. Support items 71.43%. So did fairly worse there. Pretty bad compared to the runs up until this point. And I do think that is perhaps part of the lack of ambition that a game like this could have, certainly. First of all, if each section is supposed to be a planet, then why not have, at the time, you would include Pluto as a planet, and even now, we traditionally still include Pluto as a planet. So at that point, you would have 9, or at least 8 areas. That would make some sense. It definitely would make sense to have a fairly easy level in Area 1, then a chill, relax, rebuilding your health Area 1.5, then same for Area 2.5, 3.5, 4.5. That way you can add 1, 2, 3, 4 more levels into the game. But maybe it really is a case that this is all a PlayStation 1 or a PlayStation 2 disc could hold. Weirdly, in the gaming community of game development, it's not uncommon to rip off a game or homage a game, but I have never really seen anybody try it, like on as far as Rez, when it kind of would make sense. Maybe you make something somewhat similar, but you change the graphics so drastically to look like modern realistic graphics that people wouldn't immediately think to make the comparison. But I can't name any lock-on shooter. I can't name any shooter game that has you going into a computer program. You would think that Disney would make like a Tron game or something around that. They actually have licensed a couple of Tron games, but weirdly those are more about the narrative and the story of the Tron movies. There's no visually similar but storyline different or audio music emphasis shooter. Yeah, it just seems like the whole of all the different ways you could potentially try to homage / rip off Rez, nobody has tried to do any of it. Perhaps because Rez is just too influential, people are too afraid to copy it. It's much easier to asset flip something from a Unity asset store than it is to make your own wireframe animations of even the same things. Even if you were asset flipping 3D models, it probably would take a little bit more work to turn a full 3D rendered of a model down to a wireframe animation, and nothing's going to help you as far as music. There is definitely a large amount of opportunity here. Let's just jump into 5. Although, in all fairness, I should actually exit out, because why start at level 0 when it's not like you're going to get jumped up. So this is where you start to get really tested. Like you're not going to get all the analyzation in level 5 unless you open the door. Ages ago, life was born. Each of these sections is basically showing an evolution of the history of man as seen or understood by Eve, the artificial intelligence. Young life forms constantly evolved in order to survive, and so now we're starting to see way more textures, and it's really this final level that tells the whole story of the game and leaves it to your own interpretation. But without 100% analyzation, if you can't do this level, then you're going to... Some prospered, others did not. All sorts of lives added and ebbed and flowed. So what we're seeing here is an effort by this computer program to not just be a repository, per se, of information, but a full-on simulation of the history of Earth. Like, way more ambitious. All the wireframe stuff now paying much more of a playing a first step towards this world. It's just evolving in the visuals. So with these visuals you can also see what the level of the quality of the graphics would have been otherwise. And that just gave me like 3 upgrades for... So we continue. So we have to remind ourselves what our mission here is. We're hacking in to stop this AI from, assumedly, what we think, shutting itself down, because it's been overwhelmed by the vast amount of data of all mankind being connected to it. Now, you may notice here that the large percentage here of missiles are really just distractions. They just get in the way. Whereas it would make a lot more sense to just target the main enemy. But noticeably, I don't think I actually took out the enemy there. I don't know if I could have. Well, I bet I could have if I was either full on my overdrive, or soon life began to advance towards land, opening. We're getting actual dialogue in the music. Increasingly, it's just going to be overwhelming. And definitely a longer game would also play into doing a better job of warming you up to this final level. This definitely feels like a case where this would be almost like an arcade game where everything is fairly easy, so you keep on playing and putting in quarters in the first 4 sections, and then the last section is just impossibly insane. Notice how it is also trying very hard here to make sure I have mass extinction came wave after wave, which that may indicate that this actually we're up to like the dinosaurs being wiped out, or we may even be past that point far past that point where humans may have originally already been eliminated and there's some other species on Earth. That'd be an interesting twist. Notice the game doesn't really want me to turn around yet. Notice how I'm defeating a lot of these enemies, but empty niches always quickly refilled. There is either a almost hopelessness in it, in that if you want a simple system, if you're a computer and you don't really see as life as other than potentially more data to investigate, the fact that life keeps coming back, like it just won't die out. Now you call that a hopefulness as a living biological being, certainly, but if you're the AI and you're just being overwhelmed by nature's, all the creation of nature, of the whole system being, well, I missed that one. All you would want is just a simpler world, just something you could process, something that's not burning your brain, your CPU. Someday the next great emergence will occur. Of course, maybe I'm interpreting too much into that. Maybe, and this is probably the better way to interpret the story, this is a case where the artificial intelligence here is saying that they are the next great emergence and that they are evolving to the point where they see themselves as we leave. Like, of course, in a game like this where it's just a shooter, you can't explore those thoughts too deep. Like, these viruses don't, to me, strike me as being particularly sentient. The journey will begin anew. It's all very the snake eats its own tail. And so here we are. We've got this angel-like creature high above the heavens. As we're in space. Fear is the mind killer. I hold within me the memories of all that has passed. Who am I? So is it the computer's fear, or is it human's fear? Is it the player's fear? And what mind is being killed here? Is it the AI's mind, or is it the human's mind? Or am I just interpreting too much here? And there we go. 100% analyzation, I think. And we've gotten to E. And then, you know, it kind of evolves you up when you get to this point. Anyways, so they want to give you a fair shot. Who are you? Good question. It's one of the Babylon 5 major questions. So we're now fighting a newer version of the first boss fight, or one of the earlier boss fights, maybe not the first. I only have 2 overdrives left, and increasingly I'm going to have to keep an eye out for everything. Noticeably, some of these boss fights, you're in the center, and everything is circling around you. And in some of these boss fights, the thing is circling, you're circling. He's almost completely dead, but I wonder if I have to destroy the tail to move forward. Notice we don't have a life bar. Don't come any closer. So we're at full overcharge now. So it probably wouldn't hurt to use an overcharge. Yeah, we now have the second boss. Notice that the enemy well, there, now I got knocked down. The part I'm trying to hit here is all locked. So I really do just need to take on all these enemies first. Right, so that gets me back up a level, but not fully up. Why? So at a certain level, it does certainly make a good question as to why to play the previous levels at all. They are minimal gates to at least people who have played Rez before. Now they might be fairly challenging gates to people who haven't played Rez before. I'll grant you that, but by the way, each one of these is counting down to fire on you, and they will hit you. So let's go ahead and just hit everything. It's not even doing as much as I'd like. Yeah, you have to hit them multiple times, I'm realizing now, to lower their energy levels. But yeah, if you can get to this point, aren't you afraid? Question mark. And you get that full reset. Whoops, I really just sat there for way too long. This is a pretty great place to just do that, where you just hang over the point and when you max out. Where'd you go? Here you go. But yeah, if you can get to this boss fight and not die from it, then you're fine. And in that case, you also don't want to allow him to jump into you, because that'll damage you. Yeah, this really is a case where you probably need to be chasing him. But he's moving, frankly, too fast. Now I think, save me, ... If you beat this final part without taking any damage, you maybe get a slightly different ending, and that may be the final challenge here. But it is quite a challenge to it, certainly. Yeah. There's a lot of things that are going to try and hurt you, and a lot of rings here you just want to break. Now notice, we haven't seen Eve yet, in the form we've seen. We see little fragments here of her. So it's like we're assembling her, or reassembling her. You can see there's her head going together. We're like defragmenting her almost. And you can see this, the visuals get better, and it's like you're helping her, you're saving her. You would think there would be a story that there's a rogue AI program stopping the good AI program, or that there's some kind of limiter put into it, something that would maybe explain this itself, other than it's shutting itself down, which I've never actually read that story, so I did have a little bit more of an interpretation, and definitely I just did take the whole story as more of a thing that that was much more of a subtle, open for interpretation experience, not something that had a definitive narrative to it. Yeah, and Eve looks like a woman and you look like a baby, so take that, I guess, for what you will. It's kind of interesting because these ships here do just not want to kamikaze themselves into you. They want to get slightly in front of you and then get in your way more than actually firing. What always got me about this too, though, was that this was not quite a complete form of a human. I'm collecting all these evolution orbs and it's not really doing anything. It's just for the pickup count. You can see Eve is now moving more. But yeah, you're weirdly safe in these slots. Not that you shouldn't try and target the people shooting at you. You just don't have to focus too much on it. But there definitely is an elephant in the room, certainly as far as this game, in that if you don't have hyper twitch reaction, if you're just not a fast mover, or if you're not used to the idea of either tapping A quite a bit or moving the left analog stick quite fast. That didn't even work to do enough damage. Yeah, you would pretty struggle. You struggle pretty hard if you're not a fast mover. And yeah, recently, in the past year or so, I've gotten fairly ADHD fast about how I do things. I watch YouTube videos now at two speed, 2.5 speed sometimes. Boy, I could use an overdrive there. And so there's our last. There was our hope on being at the full height. I'm 2 levels down. So almost certainly you would have wanted to save your overdrive for that last section. Of course, you have to put a little bit of time to get back to this boss fight. And see, that's the ending. There. You just fly into the chest, the heart of Eve, and you restore her. Yeah, I don't feel like Rez Infinite quite does as good of a job as it probably should have. It definitely was a game that I think people wanted re-released quite a bit, but it probably didn't see enough sales, even in the re-release, to justify going as ambitious as I'd like to. Anyways, it being a Sega game, Sega really never does seem like they're willing to fund very large games. But yeah, in an alternate world, a Rez Infinite with 12 tracks, 12 areas, just making the entire game series considerably longer, more varied music, different sound music, would all be heavily appreciated. She still lies trapped within the system. Yeah. So I think you have to beat the game at the highest level of evolution to get the proper ending. But wouldn't that be fairly easy to do? Because now you have this, and so that level, I think, was called Eden, like the Garden of Eden. So in this version of Rez Infinite, it to me feels like there's more content here than the 360 version of Rez Infinite. There's a Beyond version now, a selection of bonus stages and special modes, where we could do a direct assault in all orders, in all areas from start to finish, a lost area, mission on a long forgotten unused section of the network, achieve the lost area high score to unlock transmission, and then achieve a shutdown rate of 95% in areas 1 through 5 in play mode to get boss rush. And then, let's see. Achieve 100% shot down rate in any area of play mode or play the game for over 5 hours. That's kind of a great way to unlock features. I wish more games did that. But yeah, you can see in the Beyond options here, you could just have several different unlocks based on encouraging the player to play more. But yeah, Immortality, Infinite Overdrive, all would make some of these Beyond levels a lot easier. Score attack is for each level. So it's kind of weird to have that all separated out instead of that being just part of this. Let's see, if I wanted 95% of shot down ratios, I'd have to do Area 4 a second time and Area 5 a second time. What else do we really have as options? And honestly, maybe you could get the ratios higher on score attack, so maybe you should always choose score attack. But weirdly, it really should just be you were always getting a score, and that the score system had just been better integrated into the main experience. Meanwhile, we know that there's a lost area in Beyond in the main game, and then there's Area X here, which is yet another area. So while we've seen the credits, we're not quite done, certainly, with the game. Now, weirdly, in any of this, I could certainly just go into traveling mode, and then I would get a perhaps easier version of the game, although no game over is not really the problem. I would need something where you are literally immortal and couldn't take any damage. Yeah, and so I probably should experiment with traveling mode just to see if that's it, if that's really what that is, because I don't think it is. Yeah. So weirdly, you have this 3 different ways to engage with a lot of other stuff. And I guess the move here is to do the lost area next. And then we could do the transmission, and then play mode. You need to get 95% to get boss rush done. Particularly in Rez Infinite, though, I just don't know if there is that big of a reason that you need to do, say, direct assault or even do boss rush, because direct assault is just playing each level in a row without having to go back to the menu, and boss rush is just skipping the setup sections that you kind of need to practice as much as you need to do the boss fights. It's not really a case, at least for me in my level of experience with this game, that you're likely to be really bad at one section and then really good at another section, or really bad at like the non-boss sections and really good at the boss sections. The boss sections, if you're a speedrunner, it would perhaps make some sense to do the boss rush there, since there's probably not any way to speed up the sections before the boss fights, but that's about the only people that would help. Anyways, we still have a decent amount of content to do, even though we did see the credits and the bad ending, at least. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to support me further, there's some links down below in the description box. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.